When it comes to heartwarming, feel-good fiction about family, Monica McInerney has sort of inherited the mantle from Maeve Binchy. Her new book, The House of Memories, deals with big topics, grief and guilt. Monica, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you very much, Caroline.
What made you think about these topics for this book?
With The House of Memories, what I wanted to do was put a family under a particular stress. Like all of my books are family stories, and generally the comedy's running in tandem with the drama of family life. But with this one particularly, I wanted to see how a family copes with possibly the worst thing that can happen, which is the death of the youngest member. And I suppose almost in a way I've been warming up to something as serious as that with my other books. You know, this is my 10th novel, and all of them have touched on grief in some way and sibling rivalry in some way and the ties and the tensions that happen in family life. And I think that they've all come together in this book, that it's almost like I set off an explosion in this family, and I wanted to see, can that family knit itself back together when you have to fight your way through a forest of blame and guilt and pain, really.
Now, you come from a very large family. You're one of 7 children. So have you experienced this kind of grief within the family yourself?
Of stories I have, my mother's brother died when he was about 8. Himself and a mate were on a train and they were messing, and the door opened and he fell out. And as a child, it was one of those stories I heard over and over again, because there was a gap where my uncle should have been. Do you know that? And when you're a child, you're very aware of, I've got this uncle and that cousin. And for me, it was like, where's he gone? And my mother often spoke about the effect that had. She would only been little, she'd been 4, but she was obviously grew up in the shadow of what that had done. And she said that her mother was never able to cry again after that. And I thought about that so much, I think. So I think that was certainly a seed of it. Mm-hmm. But for myself, 18 years ago, I was babysitting a baby niece who was nearly 2, and we'd had a picnic, and I was packing up, and I was in charge of my baby niece, and I turned around for a minute, and just in that minute, she picked up a piece of fruit and started to eat it and started to choke on it. And I didn't know. I didn't notice, clutter with the plates. And I turned around and she was there silently, and she turned blue. And that's what I did. It stopped, like time stopped, and I looked at her, and there was this minute thinking, this is actually happening, I have to fix this. And then thankfully everything happened very quickly, and I was able to slap her back and got her breathing again. But I've never forgotten that. And I thought about so many times, what if I hadn't turned around? What if whatever it was that made me turn around, because it wasn't a sound from her, that in the entire landscape of my family would have changed, my life would have changed, everything in my family would have been different, but for that 5 seconds that I turned around. And I think as a writer now, my mind is trained to think about the what ifs.
Introduce us to the cast of characters then in House of Memories.
It's a blended family. Again, that was probably the third thing I wanted to explore, because I've written a lot about biological families and the tensions and rivalries between when you grow up with a family, and I really wanted to find out what happens if a stepsister arrives, or a stepbrother, or a half-sister. It must be very different dynamics, and it is, and I really, really enjoyed researching that and talking to lots of people with that family background. The main character is Ella, who's 34, and she's the mother of the child. And you meet her. She's the narrator, really. It's in first person. There's 3 main narrators, and then it's her stepbrother Charlie, who all of his sections are written only in email. He's a father of 4. He's very busy. He communicates with his family via email. And the third main character is Jess, who's 21. An aspiring musical theatre star, and she's been keeping a diary since she was 16, because she figures she's going to be so famous and so busy that she might as well get the biography written now. And hers is all written in diary form. So they're the 3 main characters, and then there's Ella's uncle Lucas in London, who is the custodian of the house that she flees to after this tragedy, and then her mother and her husband also, Ella's husband. So it's a wide cast of characters, as I am inclined to do.
It is, and in a way you sort of replicate I'm thinking that you're replicating your own family, of course, when you...
It's fiction, Caroline.
I know, but I love the fact that with Lucas is this uncle who has a house that's full of tenants, and those tenants are, in a way, like a sort of surrogate family,
Absolutely.
aren't they?
They completely are, yes. And I think you're actually right. When I keep saying, no, I don't use my own family life. Of course I do, because everything I write comes out of what's inside me, and that's my experience of growing up in a house full of different characters coming and going, and just that, door opening and shutting, you never know what someone's going to announce. And so there is a bit of that, and there's a great comfort in a house full of people, I think. So certainly that is elements of it.
How does Ella deal with her grief? When we meet her, she's still very, very raw. As you say, she's run away. She can't speak to her husband at all about what happened.
She's running. She is running as fast as she can. She's trying to outrun it. And when I started to write the book, I knew I wanted to come in after the event. Felix, the boy at the heart of the novel, is 20 months when the tragedy happens. And I start the book 20 months afterwards. I felt that symmetry of the time was very important in terms of what, in the journey of grief, I know that myself, that after my father died, there was real landmarks that you hang on to when you're so sad. You think, maybe I'll feel better after that much time has passed, or that much time has passed. And of course, it's not true. It just changes shape. And so in terms of what she has to do to find out, she has to face it, she has to slow down, I think. And that's where, as a reader and as a writer, that's where we meet her. It's when she's being forced to admit so many things to herself.
Along with all that quite dark material, you've given us some light.
Yes.
With Ella's mum. Tell us about her.
Well, her name is Meredith, and she is, there is, for all we're talking about the sad side of the book, and there is, it is a seam of sadness, but there is a lot of humour in it as well, because I think human beings, we can be very sad, but I think you often laugh the most when you're very sad, because all your barriers are down, so you find things particularly funny sometimes. So I wanted to make sure that for every time there's a sad chapter, something will cheer you in the next chapter. And Ella's mother provided a lot of that. She's a celebrity TV chef, and she was discovered in a supermarket, shopping centre, trial television, the kind of talent spotting thing, and I had a lot of fun with her, and because I keep, I live in Dublin certainly, but I keep up a lot with what happens here on the internet every day.
And you're a good cook yourself.
I love a bit of cooking myself, so I had a lot of fun with her, her scenes. So she has a kind of madcap TV cooking show called Merry Makers, and that was fun to just play with, that whole notion of TV celebrity chefs too. That was good fun.
What about Jess, the young woman who's keeping a diary of her trying to make it in the world of auditioning for a West End show in London? She's come to London with these sort of super inflated dreams and ambitions. She's a bit of a princess. She's been kind of cosseted by her parents. We're not quite sure why, but she seems in her diary certainly to have some quite high highs, and it becomes clear that there's an issue there.
Yes, yeah. Well, Jess was a very interesting character to write, because Ella, her stepsister, is 34 and is going through what she's going through. And Jess I think she's the most unreliable narrator of the whole book. And that's, that unfolds as it goes along. She's incredibly self-obsessed, which some, 21-year-olds can be. And so I did enjoy that. I did spend a lot of time in London doing the research for this book, and a lot of time around the West End, and I saw these young ones. I saw these young girls, who were the auditioning for roles in the chorus and things like that. And there's a particular brittle confidence about them. They can take on the world, and they're always gorgeous, and they're so fresh and that sort of thing. And they're not. They're so insecure underneath, and you just thought, God love them, little pets, really. But there's a kind of a she is deluding herself the whole way through, and that's self-protection, I think.
Monica, everybody was obviously very saddened by the sudden death of Maeve Binchy, and I do think of you as somewhat inheriting a mantle of hers, writing about family, writing about home in this very sort of heartfelt, very warm way. What did Maeve Binchy mean to you? I
loved Maeve Binchy. I loved her as an author first. When I first moved to Ireland 21 years ago, I read everything that she'd written, and it was like a cultural, fictional introduction to Ireland, because she wrote about the way Irish society is, the way Irish people communicate with each other, the family, the relationship with the church, politics. She was often wrongly dismissed as, as light fiction. She's completely not. She was a complete chronicler of Irish society, and with a really unerring eye and with a kind eye too. But when she died, and I was so sad. I was in Dublin when it happened, and the nation literally grieved. It was this huge outpouring of grief. The programs were devoted to her. Her funeral was broadcast live on the national radio, and I took to my bed and I read 3 of her books back to back. I just felt like I needed to pay tribute to her or something. And again, I was struck by just how much heart and warmth that she had, but that the political eye of her, she was on top of everything. She writes about abortion, divorce, affairs,
the new
class
prosperity,
struggle,
the kind of
everything.
aspirational,
Absolutely.
Sort of new
Yes.
Ireland after the Celtic Tiger
And
came into
and when
being.
it crashed, she wrote about that as well. And I think she, as in years to come, her novels will be, they tell you what Ireland was like for most people. And I think she was beautiful. And I got to meet her. I met her once years ago when I first moved to Ireland, just at an author's day. And she was so kind and so curious. She heard my accent, and you think, oh, maybe she's asked me a question. And then I met her at a booksellers event last year, and I had the chance just to say, look, your books have meant so much and helped me. And I'm really sad that there'll be no more books. It's a real sadness.
Even when she's writing about dark subjects like loss, Monica McInerney has a light touch. This is a book about the messy complexities of family life. It really is vintage Monica McInerney.